When I was around 8 years old, I went to a large private school that comprised of kindergartens all the way up to college. The school is called OLOPSC in Marikina, Philippines. In the part of the building I was studying at, there were 2 washrooms, an upstairs and a downstairs. Students were allowed to go to either, but were recommended to go to the one closest to their classroom. The closest bathroom to me was the lower level, and I hated going because the room depended on natural light from the windows for lighting. It was dim at best, and it really just had a creepy vibe. Not exactly sure when it started, but every time I'd go to piss, I would feel someone watching over my back. I would turn around and I would not see anything unusual, but the sensation was there. After about a couple of weeks, the encounters escalated to a point that I could finally see who or what was looking at me in my peripherals. It was a young boy about 5 years old, wearing a white shirt, blue shorts, blank eyes and facial expression, dark lips and dark hair. His skin was a lifeless grey colour. He would stare at me without breaking contact. However, when I would turn to face him, he would be gone. This would happen every time I went to the washroom, and I got so scared that I decided I would use the second floor washroom from then on. One day I really had to go piss, but I wasn't able to make it to the second floor washroom. I wet my pants embarrassingly, and I was sent home for the day. I told my parents I just couldn't hold it. It was a much easier excuse than having to tell them a little boy is watching me pee in the first floor washroom. My older brother, 10 years old at the time, who went to the same school, asked me why I opted to go to the second floor bathroom instead of the one closest to my classroom. This time, I decided to tell my brother the real reason, expecting him to tell me it's all in my head or it's just in my imagination. But boy was I wrong. When I told him, it was because every time I went to the first floor washroom I felt like someone was watching me. My brother replied with, "Is it a boy?" and proceeds to describe exactly how the boy looks, down to the way it stared at him. I was completely freaked out when he shared his identical experiences with the ghost. I'm 19 now, and to this day, I have absolutely no explanation for all of this. I still have vivid memories of the boy's image, and I have never felt the same eerie feeling from being stared at by that boy. If anyone has had similar experiences, please share. Thank you.
When I was growing up, there was a girl in my neighborhood that was very, very strange. All of the other kids were freaked out by her. One day, she told all of the kids that in the forest behind her house, there was dead, bloody people. When they heard this, all the kids freaked out and told their parents. Their fathers had to go out and search the forest just in case. But all they found was candy wrappers and empty beer bottles. After that, all the kids in my neighborhood refused to go near her, including me. A few years later, my parents divorced. On the day the moving came to take my mom's things out of the house, the girl came up to me out of nowhere and told me that Matt didn't like that my parents were getting a divorce. I had no idea who Matt was. Even though I stopped being friends with her, my dad was still friends with her parents. My dad had told me that Matt was her imaginary friend. Her parents had told him all about the problems they were having. Matt was often too physical. They claimed that Matt could control the lights and could even make the power go out. They said Matt also knocked on doors at night, and if he was ignored, the banging on the doors would start. A few years later, my dad decided that he would invite the girl and her parents over to our house. I was begging my dad not to do this, but he said it would be nice to catch up with them. So when they came over that night, my dad told me to entertain the girl. I brought her up to my bedroom, and she seemed to be acting normal. She even told me how nice my room was. However, I was still creeped out by her. She just sat down in the middle of the floor while I tried to put a movie on the DVD player. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, in the most deadpan voice, she said, "Matt's here." And at that exact moment, the lights began to flicker on and off. I got so scared I ran out of my room, crying in fear. Her parents came running up the stairs, dragged their daughter out of my room, and took her home. For weeks afterwards, I refused to sleep in my bedroom. I haven't heard much from that family ever since then. But I have heard that Matt still controlled the lights, but I didn't know if he was really still around. To this day, whenever the lights begin to flicker or a bulb blows, it still freaks me out.
This happened more than 10 years ago, when I was a very little kid. This story crossed my mind in the past few days, so I decided to write it down somewhere. It was 2007 or 2006, and my father worked as a truck driver, sporadically for extremely long travels. My mother and my brother used to stay home every time he went on those long travels, but this one time the travel would have taken 3 or 4 days, so we all went together. My dad had to drive to Rome, and it was really far from our home. So after an entire day spent driving, we decided to stop for the night. We were in a really isolated and rural area of Toscana, and we were too far from a hotel, so we decided to sleep in the truck. My parents slept on the seats, while me and my brother slept on the little bed that is placed behind the seats. I woke up in the middle of the night, and what I saw still bugs me to this day. A black, humanoid figure with a mouth full of huge yellow teeth was staring at me from the passenger seat. His body was super skinny, and it looked like it was composed of air. I remember that it sounded like a snake. I was petrified and was shaking. I could feel the sweat on my face. I wanted to scream, but I had no voice. I felt like it was all a dream, but I knew it wasn't. I don't remember what happened next. I woke up in the morning and it was gone. I never told anyone in my family about this. For all my childhood, I slept with a light at the side of my bed, and I always waited for my brother to come to bed before falling asleep. I had several nightmares where the creature just stared at me while I was sleeping. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night to pee. I walked to the door of my bedroom, but I stopped there. I was again petrified by fear. I knew something bad was waiting for me behind that door. I stood still for some time, then collected myself and I slammed the door open with one quick movement. There was nothing behind it. I ran back to my bed and hid in the blankets for the rest of the night. Sometimes through my childhood, this would happen again. Today I suffer from insomnia and have frequent nightmares, but they don't have the creature in it anymore. I tried to convince myself that what happened that night was only a product of my childish mind. I forced myself to believe this version of facts. But I know that maybe I am wrong.
One evening when I was in my junior year of high school, my mom and dad went out, leaving me home alone. I had a lot of homework to do, so I spent the whole evening sitting at my desk in my bedroom. My parents left the house around 6 p.m. While I was doing my homework, I put on my headphones and listened to really loud music. There was a big storm that night, and my desk was facing the window so I could see the rain and the lightning outside. My parents got back around 11 p.m. When I saw their car drive up, I took off my headphones, and as soon as my mom opened the front door and came inside, I heard her shout my name. "What on earth happened in here?" she demanded in an angry voice. Confused, I ran downstairs. My mom was standing in the hallway with a furious look on her face. She pointed at the floor and yelled, "Was this you?" I looked down and I saw the carpet was covered in muddy footprints. "I have no idea how those got there," I said. "I spent the whole night at my desk doing my homework." I watched as they looked around, and the looks on their face had changed from anger to confusion, and then to fear. We both realized it at the same time. Someone else must have been in the house. So we followed the trail of footprints, trying to make sense of the whole situation. They started at the back door, which we usually left unlocked. Then we noticed something else. The footprints may have started at the back door, but there was no trail of footprints leaving through the back door. All of a sudden we heard something, a really loud pounding noise that echoed throughout the house. Then the sound of the front door being wrenched open and slammed shut again. Wham! We all ran into the garage and locked the door behind us. My mom took out her cell phone and called the police. "Please come quickly," she shouted. "Someone's in our house." After what seemed like hours, a patrol car arrived with 2 police officers, a male and a female. One officer stayed with us in the garage while his partner went through the house, searching it room by room. When she came back, the female officer told us that there was nobody in the house and it was safe to go back in. As we were all breathing a sigh of relief, she asked, "Whose bedroom is upstairs on the left?" My parents looked at me. "Well, that's my bedroom," I told the officer. She asked us to follow her. As we walked through the house, we could see the trail of muddy footprints leading from the back door, through the living room, through the hallway and up the stairs, into my parents' bedroom, and then towards my room. They stopped at my doorway. The female officer pointed at my door, which had been open the whole night, but scrawled on it in black marker was the following: 8:47 p.m. I see you. 8:53 p.m. You forgot to lock the back door. 8:59. You seem focused. 9:24. Turn around. 9:47. Look at me. 10:15. Look at me. 10:37. Look at me. 10:49. Look at me. For more than 2 hours, someone had been standing in my doorway, watching me. To this day, I still shudder to think what would have happened if I had actually turned around.